The relationship you have with government is different than the relationship you think you have with government. And in this interview, I'll cover certain points and tell you certain things I've done that should convince you that I know what I'm talking about. It's just the law, but there are mountains of it. Law is a mountain of rules. You can choose an area of law. You can choose generally how to help people deal with the system and not know anything about the law that they're subject to, but you know they need this, they need that, and you might help them out with something depending on how much you know. Tax law is my specialty, and there's plenty of people out there, I don't know how many, I don't keep track, but it's the movement. And I can sync them with one paragraph of tax law. It gets this ridiculous, but understand it's a paragraph that explains how to tax the entire workforce, every paycheck, all sole proprietorship income, self-employment earnings, tips, fees, wages, salaries, compensation of any nature, sick pay, all of it. It's all compensation for services, and Section 83A of the tax code explains how to tax all of it. According to the courts, according to IRS publication 2007-19, it explains how to tax a paycheck. It's a secret. The government won't talk about it. If you sent a Freedom of Information Act request to the government, hey, IRS General Counsel, give me all the literature, everything, all the documents, whether it's a CD-ROM, PowerPoint presentation, DVD, audio recording, documents, books, I don't care what it is. Tell me about it and send me a copy of it. We have no documents responsive to that request, and we're not going to do legal research for you. Equals, we don't even train our staff on the document that explains whether or not you're going to have a relationship with the federal government when all you've done is sell your labor. It's one thing to sit here and say this. It's another thing to share with you that John Steele in Kentucky was sued by the Department of Justice, U.S. District Court, to convert IRS tax assessments into real estate. And they said, we want the court to order that he turn over that real estate to us based on these assessments. Well, the real estate was real estate he had lost to his ex-wife several years prior, so he didn't even own it. And so there was nothing to lose in the lawsuit. I said, it's hell to sit here and watch somebody get sued by the government. You want to go on the offense? He says, oh yeah. So I wrote him a counterclaim, a counter lawsuit, and he sued the U.S. government in U.S. District Court under his docket number. He didn't ask for the world. He didn't ask them to admit they were stealing. He simply asked for 3 different things. The second 2 are contingent upon not getting the first one. The third one is contingent upon not getting the second one. First cause of action says in the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, you're entitled to clear explanation of the laws. Okay, I'm suing for that clear explanation of every tax regulation and every tax statute, which you'd never get. It's a monument, okay? They'd have to get 18-wheelers to bring all that to the premises. Okay, if you can't do that, cause number 2, I'm suing you for a clear explanation of these 35 provisions that they've had in my arguments since I wrote my treatise in the first quarter of 1994, in another century. I'm still asking after all this time for clear explanation of those provisions. And then the third one was, if the tax is not imposed by clear language, I win. If the law is void for vagueness, I win. If the individual of ordinary intelligence can't understand it, I win. If the taxman can't lay his finger on the law, allowing the taxman to put his finger on the citizen's property, I win. I have all these blocks of case law that say these things about due process when tax law is vague or highly debatable. and his lawsuit was dismissed. You can't have clear explanations of the law. And one of them was Section 83 that explains how to tax the entire workforce. You can't have it. They won't talk about it. They ignore it. They don't train on it. And yet it governs whether or not you have a relationship with the IRS. It's that stupid. And this after having first received my arguments in 1993. And this may sound comical, but there's a frivolous arguments list that the IRS is required by statute, actually. The Treasury is required by statute to publish. It's up to, I don't know, I think it's 80 pages now of frivolous arguments you could bring to court, and you'll be penalized for it because it's frivolous. Section 83 is one of those frivolous claims, but it's not in that publication. And they've had 28 years to put it there. I wrote a manual about it, about Section 83, in the first quarter of 1993, or 94. I added a 30-page epilogue to it in 2014. And it's the only writing on Tax Code Section 83 that anyone's ever done as it relates to the standard paycheck. It's still the only one. The government won't talk about it, and the entire anti-tax movement refuses to even look at it. Tax lawyers, criminal defense lawyers. Yeah, I'm just going to ignore the statute that explains how to tax my client's paycheck, so I don't really know if it's gross income, and I'm going to sit there while the IRS and DOJ feed on him in a criminal trial. Is that a tax professional? Is that an expert? So just with one paragraph of tax law, I can strip them bare. And nobody else even teaches this. And about the movement, you tell them there's a statute that governs that the IRS won't talk about. They can't even tell it's an opportunity for offense. So their gurus teach them nothing about the law. There's a law that's off limits. You'll be penalized for asking, and that doesn't even spark their interest. Well, if that's a law that screwed you, the government's going to drag it out and beat you about the head and neck with it. Which means if they don't want to talk about it, it protects you. And they can't deny a word of it. 3 times to the Supreme Court in 2018. 5 times to the Supreme Court by October of '98. So I've actually done the work. I've conducted the litigation. The government runs and runs and runs from that statute and the other 30 or so provisions that John Steele sued for in Kentucky. So I'm not here to tell you I can get you all your money back. I could do it. 2.5 years later, they'll lien and levy you into poverty with penalties and interest. That's the way it works. And since the people in the movement don't do this work, they can't see 3 years down the road as to whether or not by jumping through their stupid little hoops, you're jeopardizing your marriage, your equity in your home, and the rest of it. Your reputation, it'll be gone forever, and they don't want to see that far because then they'd sell fewer books. And I'm on the other end trying to help people stay out of prison by understanding your